All right, let's get into a story that's become a true legend. We're talking about one of the most famous books in Kenyan popular culture, a raw, unfiltered look at a life of crime, told by the man who actually lived it. And that's him. That's our narrator, John Kiriamiti, who wrote the book as Jack Solo. This one-line man, it just tells you everything. It's not just a crime story. It's about a guy completely losing his innocence and discovering this dark, hidden world he never knew existed. Now get this, my life in... All right, let's get into a story that's become a true legend. We're talking about one of the most famous books in Kenyan popular culture, a raw, unfiltered look at a life of crime, told by the man who actually lived it. And that's him. That's our narrator, John Kiriamiti, who wrote the book as Jack Solo. This one-line man, it just tells you everything. It's not just a crime story. It's about a guy completely losing his innocence and discovering this dark, hidden world he never knew existed. Now get this, my life in crime wasn't written in some quiet, cozy office. Nope, it was written from inside Naivasha maximum security prison. It became a huge hit in the Spear book series, which were these fast, thrilling novels that people just couldn't get enough of. So you got a criminal. Well, the whole thing starts with a few bad decisions that just spiral way out of control. And man, one of the most famous... All right, let's get into a story that's become a true legend. We're talking about one of the most famous books in Kenyan popular culture, a raw, unfiltered look at a life of crime, told by the man who actually lived it. And that's him. That's our narrator, John Kiriamiti, who wrote the book as Jack Solo. This one-line man, it just tells you everything. It's not just a crime story. It's about a guy completely losing his innocence and discovering this dark, hidden world he never knew existed. Now get this, my life in crime wasn't written in some quiet, cozy office. Nope, it was written from inside Naivasha maximum security prison. It became a huge hit in the Spear book series, which were these fast, thrilling novels that people just couldn't get enough of. So you gotta ask yourself, how does a kid from a pretty decent family, his parents were teachers for crying out loud, end up becoming a notorious criminal? Well, the whole thing starts with a few bad decisions that just spiral way out of control. And man, things went downhill fast. He gets kicked out of school at 15, but instead of coming clean, he pretends to still be a student for almost a year, using his school fees to party in Nairobi. When his dad finally figures it out and drags him home, it's too late. The city's got its hooks in him. He steals from his own father and bolts right back. But the Nairobi he ran back to, it's not waiting with open arms. I mean, within hours of getting there, some other guy tricks him, and poof, his suitcase, his clothes, all that stolen money, it's all gone. He's got absolutely nothing. And this is where he hits rock bottom. I mean, really rock bottom. So he starts pickpocketing, just to survive, but the money's not great and it's risky. It was only a matter of time before someone came along and offered him a chance to move up to the big leagues. Imagine someone saying that to you. It's a guy named Captain Nugi, and he's basically calling Jack a coward. He's saying, all this pickpocketing stuff, that's for amateurs. The real money, the real respect, that's in robbery. It's a challenge, and Jack's desperate enough to listen. And we're not talking about some simple smash and grab. Robbery with violence is a very specific, very steep cliff. But he needs that money. And believe it or not, the job is a success. The gang makes off with 33,000 shillings and Jack's cut is 6,000. Now, you have to understand, for a young guy who was literally sleeping on the pavement a few months ago, this amount of money is like winning the lottery. It's his sister, Connie, and she helps him set up his new apartment. For just a second, it feels like he has the normal life he's been chasing. And there it is, 6 months. That's all it took. The huge score, the fancy furniture, all of it gone. The fortune just vanished, and he's right back where he started, flat broke and needing another job. So what do when you're desperate again? You go back to what you know. But the next job is going to teach him a hard lesson. There is no such thing as easy money, and the stakes are always higher than you think. This time, it's different. He's not just broke, he has a girlfriend, Millie. He wants to give her a good life. So that pressure pushes him to say yes to a really dangerous plan. a highway ambush on a farmer to steal his company's payroll. And on paper, the plan looked flawless. I mean, they had every detail covered. Steal the car, watch the bank, follow the guy to a quiet road, fake a breakdown to block him. It seemed like a simple, clean job. But plans have a funny way of falling apart, don't they? The whole thing goes sideways, fast. The farmer they targeted wasn't some easy mark. He was armed, and he was ready to fight back. One of their crew, Commande, is shot and killed right there on the road. Jack gets away, but that illusion of a glamorous life of crime, it's completely shattered. This isn't a game. This is real life, where one little mistake gets somebody killed. And after all the close calls, the money, and the violence, this brings us to where this kind of life almost always ends. The thrills don't last, but the price you pay, that's forever. Let's just break it down. Look at the balance sheet. The promise is quick cash, a fancy lifestyle, this feeling of freedom. But what's the real price? Years, decades, in prison. Your friends ending up dead or locked away with you, and a life where you're constantly looking over your shoulder. Because the bill always comes due. On January 6, 1971, the law finally caught up with John Kiriamiti. His life as a criminal was over, but that's where the incredible next chapter began. The one where he sits in a prison cell and writes this entire unbelievable story. And his story really makes you wonder, doesn't it? We see the appeal, the fast cars, the easy money, the excitement, but when you see the whole picture, the desperation, the violence, the loss, you have to ask, is it ever really worth it in the end? And for the final word, we'll leave it to the author himself, writing from that prison cell. It's almost like a plea, telling us he's a changed man. It's just a haunting end to an incredible journey, from a rebellious schoolboy to a legendary author inside a maximum security prison. Okay, I want you to just picture the scene for a second. It's Nairobi, late 1960s, and the city is in this really weird electric transitional phase. We're post-independence, the economy's booming, new buildings are going up.
Right.
But on the ground, it is basically the Wild West, or I guess the Wild East. It's the era of the great bank robberies.
And right in the middle of all that chaos, there's a man, years later, sitting in a maximum security prison cell, and he picks up a pen.
Not to apologize, but to explain exactly how he helped burn that city down.
And that explanation becomes My Life in Crime. You could argue it's the most famous piece of pulp fiction to ever come out of Kenya.
But the terrifying part is, it's barely fiction at all. It's a confession.
Exactly.
That's what we're digging into today. The story of John Kiriamiti, or as he was better known, his alias, Jack Zollo. And I think the reason this book has stuck with people for decades isn't just the gunfights, it's the transformation. We need to figure out how a smart, well-educated kid from a good family ends up as one of the most wanted men in the country.
Exactly. This isn't some Oliver Twist story. He wasn't stealing bread to survive, at least not at the start.
Right, that's the big misconception.
His parents were teachers. He was born in 1950. In the context of Kenya at that time, that is a privileged upbringing. He had shoes, he had books, he had a real future ahead of him.
So the slide into the underworld isn't about pure necessity. It's about what? Ego, boredom.
I think it's a mix of both, with a very specific kind of youthful arrogance thrown in. He's in secondary school. He's bright, but he's volatile.
And the catalyst isn't a crime.
No, it's a student strike. He's the ringleader, demanding better food, better conditions, and he gets expelled for it.
Which, so far feels like a pretty standard teenage rebellion story.
Right. But it's how he handles the fallout. A normal kid goes home, faces the music. Kiriamiti doesn't. He's terrified of his father, sure, but he's also too proud.
So he just stays in Nairobi.
Stays in Nairobi, crashing with his uncle, and pretends he's still going to school every day. He's living a lie before he's even committed a single crime.
But that lie has a shelf life.
It does. His own brother, Sammy, blows his cover. The parents find out, the uncle finds out, and the ultimatum comes down. You're going back to the rural reserves. You're done with the city.
And for a kid who's tasted the freedom of 1960s Nairobi, the music, the energy being sent back to the village is like a death sentence. So he runs.
He runs. He gets on a bus back to the city with just one small box of his belongings. And this is the moment I find so fascinating. This future criminal mastermind.
It's played immediately.
It gets completely played. This is the classic shoe shine scam, isn't it?
It's almost painful to read. He's at the bus terminal, looking lost. A friendly stranger comes up, starts a conversation, buys some tea.
And the guy says, hey, leave your heavy box with this shoe shine boy. We'll go get some food.
And because he's from a good family, because he's used to a world where people are generally honest, he does it.
Of course. And he comes back. The shoe shine boy is at different purses. The stranger is gone. And the box has vanished.
He goes to the police, and they just shrug. In a few hours, he's gone from a rebellious student to a completely destitute street kid.
That's the pivot point. He's sleeping on pavements, eating scraps. He talks about seeing a coin between a beggar's legs and almost taking it just to buy food.
That level of desperation, it changes your moral compass fast.
It breaks you. He meets a guy, Wan Zhao, who's a pickpocket. And this is his apprenticeship in crime. But here's the interesting part. He hates it.
I assume that was a moral thing. Stealing from poor people at a bus stop.
It's not morality. It's anxiety. He describes the pure terror of it, his hand shaking, the constant fear of the mob, his life for a few shillings. He decides he wants the gentleman's crime.
Which leads him to car breaking.
Precisely. It's cleaner. You target tourist cars, wealthy locals, smash a window, grab a camera, and you're gone. He adopts the name Jack Zolo. He starts dressing better, drinking in nice bars. He's rebuilding his self-image. He's not a common thief. He's a street businessman.
But that's just the minor leagues. The majors are calling. And in the late 60s, the majors meant armed robbery. I want to unpack his first big heist, the Westlands job, because reading his account, it doesn't sound like a movie. It sounds like a complete disaster waiting to happen.
It's incredibly amateurish. A guy named Captain Ngugi recruits him. The target is a white man delivering a payroll to a bank. Zolo's job is simple. Act as a lookout, snatch the bag.
But he is an absolute nervous wreck. He's standing there pretending to read a newspaper.
But he's holding it upside down.
Yeah, a passerby actually smiles at him because he looks so ridiculous.
It's such a humanizing detail, isn't it? He's just playing the role of a gangster.
Yeah.
But then the car shows up, and instinct just takes over. He grabs the bag, chaos, Captain Ngugi fires.
Comedy of errors. Thika is just a tragedy.
This is where the violence stops being theoretical. They ambush a white farm owner on a mud road. Fake a breakdown.
But the target fights back. He has a gun.
A shootout starts. And Zolo's accomplice, Kamande, takes a bullet right in the chest.
They drag him into the getaway car. They're speeding away. Kamande is bleeding out in the back seat. And the driver, a guy named Kagwachi, looks in the rearview mirror and says one of the coldest lines I've ever read.
Let the dead bury the dead.
It's just chilling.
It's a Bible quote, Matthew 8.22, but he's twisting it into this nihilistic code for their world. Survival over loyalty. Every time.
But Zolo isn't there yet. He snaps. He actually pulls his own gun on the driver.
He's ready to kill him. It shows he still has this strange, twisted code of honor. He's horrified by the callousness. But the reality is they can't save him. They end up dumping Kamande's body in the stolen car and just abandoning it.
That has to change a person. You're not just a thief anymore. You've left a friend to die.
And yet, life just goes on. Zolo takes his cut 21,000 shillings this time and tries to numb the memory. And this is where the story gets so bizarrely domestic. Amidst all this, he falls in love.
Millie. Miriam Yambui. And the way they meet is like something out of a rom-com.
It is. He finds her lost bus pass on the ground, sees her photo, thinks she's beautiful, and actually tracks her down to return it.
And he introduces himself as a respectable employee of Hughes Limited, a car dealership.
And she falls for it, at least at first. But there's this one moment that really seals their bond, and it complicates how you see Zolo.
The food poisoning.
Yeah, Millie's whole family gets severe food poisoning in the middle of the night. It's life-threatening. Zolo, risking being seen, gets a car and rushes them all to the hospital. He saves their lives.
So her mother adores him. He's the perfect son-in-law. Millie moves in with him. She's buying sofa sets and tea utensils.
Trying to build a home. Meanwhile, under the bed, there's a suitcase with a gun and stacks of stolen cash.
That's the double life, the compartmentalization. He wants the picket fence and the heist, but you can feel the walls closing in.
He knows the police are getting closer. Which brings us to the Small World Club.
He's there for a drink, Millie's there, but the vibe is just off.
He spots a woman buying rounds for everyone. Too friendly. His instincts are screaming informant. He passes a note to Millie under the table. Let's go.
Too late. The doors burst open. Police officer with a machine gun.
Okay, now pause here. Zolo is carrying a gun. If they find it on him, with his record, that's a capital sentence. hanging. He has maybe 3 seconds.
And he does something that is either genius or just incredibly selfish.
It's both. He slides his gun into Millie's handbag.
It saves his life, but puts hers in mortal danger.
But the police are focused on him. They know his face. They drag him out. They beat him, but they don't search the girlfriend. Millie just walks out with the evidence.
So they have him. He's at the station. They know he's Jack Zollo, but he plays dumb. He insists his name is Albert Wanjohi.
And he pays for that lie. The interrogation is brutal. But he knows, admitting Zollo connects him to everything. As Albert Wanjohi, he's just some guy with no ID.
So he gets remanded to await trial, and this is where the story becomes pure folklore. The escape.
It's not a prison break with dynamite. It's social engineering at its absolute finest.
He's in the court cells, it's a dungeon, packed with people, and he starts talking to a drunkard named Jadil Gichoya.
Jadil is in for being drunk and disorderly. His fine is 60 shillings. If he pays it, he walks free.
But he doesn't have 60 shillings, Zollo does.
Exactly, hidden in his socks. So he makes a deal. I'll give you the money for your fine. But the catch is,
Zollo is going to be the one to go upstairs and pay it.
Yep. So when the warder calls out Jadil Gichoya, Zollo stands up. He answers to the drunk's name. The guards don't check. They're overwhelmed.
This image is just incredible. He's standing at the court clerk's counter, counting out 60 shillings, and right next to him
are the senior prison officers and inspectors who are hunting for Jack Zollo.
They are literally talking about him, about how to transfer the dangerous criminal, Albert Wanjohi. And Zollo is 3 feet away getting his receipt stamp.
Invisible in plain sight.
He takes the receipt, walks out the front door of the courthouse.
They will
a rushed goodbye to Millie and leaves his younger siblings with her, which is a whole other thing, and heads for the border. But he needs a car.
And this leads to the most ironic moment in the entire book. He's outside a cinema looking for a car to steal. And he sees an Indian man breaking into a Volkswagen.
A thief robbing a car.
And Zollo walks up to him and basically says, I know what you're doing. Give me the car and 4,000 shillings or I scream for the police.
He blackmails a car thief.
He robs the robber. The guy is terrified, hands over the keys and the cash. And Zollo drives that stolen Volkswagen all the way through Uganda, Rwanda, and into the Congo.
And this part of the story, the Congo exile, this is where it gets truly surreal. He doesn't just hide out. He reinvents himself as an aristocrat.
He's in Bukavu. He meets a Greek millionaire named Stefano. And Zollo tells him this incredible story. I am the son of a high-ranking Kenyan politician in political exile.
And because Zollo is educated, because he speaks so well, thanks to those teacher parents, Stefano believed him.
He takes him in. Zollo becomes the family chauffeur, but he's treated like a surrogate son. He's living in a villa, has servants. He's driving a Mercedes 300 SE. He's playing tennis with the millionaire's kids.
He made it. He has the dream. Safe, wealthy, respected. So logically, he should just keep his head down.
Logically, yes. But he can't.
What does he do?
He starts using the millionaire's Mercedes as an illegal taxi matatu during the day while the boss is at work.
Wait, I need to process that. He's living in a villa, eating 5-star meals, but he's hustling for pocket change by cramming villagers into a luxury sedan.
Exactly. He is risking this entire paradise for a handful of francs. It makes absolutely no sense financially, but psychologically, it makes perfect sense.
He's addicted to the hustle.
He cannot handle the silence of a legitimate life. He needs the action, the friction of the street. It's not about the money anymore. It's about getting away with it.
That's the real tragedy of John Kiriamiti, isn't it? He had the intelligence to be a CEO, a real business leader, but that flaw, that need for the adrenaline, it sabotaged him every single time, even in Paradise.
And we know how it ends. The Paradise didn't last. The law has a long memory. He was eventually caught, brought back to Kenya, and thrown into that same maximum security cell where he wrote this book.
20 years in prison. And in a way, the book was his final hustle. He couldn't rob banks, so he
let's
stole
get into a story that's become a true legend. We're talking about one of the most famous books in Kenyan popular culture, a raw, unfiltered look at a life of crime told by the man who actually lived it. And that's him. That's our narrator, John Kiriamiti, who wrote the book as Jack Zollo. This one-line man, it just tells you everything. It's not just a crime story. It's about a guy completely losing his innocence and discovering this dark, hidden world he never knew existed. Now get this, My Life in Crime wasn't written in some quiet, cozy office. Nope, it was written from inside Naivasha Maximum Security Prison. It became a huge hit in the Spear book series, which were these fast, thrilling novels that people just couldn't get enough of. So you gotta ask yourself, how does a kid from a pretty decent family, his parents were teachers for crying out loud, end up becoming a notorious criminal? Well, the whole thing starts with a few bad decisions that just spiral way out of control. And man, things went downhill fast. He gets kicked out of school at 15, but instead of coming clean, he pretends to still be a student for almost a year, using his school fees to party in Nairobi. When his dad finally figures it out and drags him home, it's too late. The city's got its hooks in him. He steals from his own father and bolts right back. But the Nairobi he ran back to, it's not waiting with open arms. I mean, with all gone. And this is where he hits rock bottom. I mean, really rock bottom. He's broke, he's starving, hasn't eaten in 2 days, and he's sleeping on the street. Then, in this moment of just pure desperation, he sees a pickpocket at work. And suddenly, crime doesn't just feel like an option. It feels like the only way out. So he starts pickpocketing, just to survive. But the money's not great and it's risky. It was only a matter of time before someone came along and offered him a chance to move up to the big leagues. Imagine someone saying that to you. It's a guy named Captain Nugi, and he's basically calling Jack a coward. He's saying, all this pickpocketing stuff, that's for amateurs. The real money, the real respect, that's in robbery. It's a challenge, and Jack's desperate enough to listen. And we're not talking about some simple smash and grab. Robbery with violence is a very specific, very serious crime in Kenya. We're talking a minimum of 14 years in prison if you get caught. So this isn't a step up. For Jack, it's like jumping off a cliff. But he needs that money. And believe it or not, the job is a success. The gang makes off with 33,000 shillings, and Jack's cut is 6,000. Now, you have to understand, for a young guy who was literally sleeping on the pavement a few months ago, this amount of money is like winning the lottery. It's life-changing. But here's the thing about easy money, right? It comes fast, but it goes even faster. And this is really the core of the story, the vicious cycle of a criminal's finances. So what's the first thing he does with all this cash? He goes on a massive shopping spree. He's not investing, he's not saving it, he's buying things. A sofa, a carpet, a radiogram. He's trying to buy the look of a normal, stable life. And for a little while, you see this glimmer of the man he could have been. He reaches out to his sister, Connie, and she helps him set up his new apartment. For just a second, it feels like he has the normal life he's been chasing. And there it is, 6 months, that's all it took. The huge score, the fancy furniture, all of it gone. The fortune just vanished, and he's right back where he started, flat broke and needing another job. So what do you do when you're desperate again? You go back to what you know. But the next job is going to teach him a hard lesson. There is no such thing as easy money, and the stakes are always, always higher than you think. This time, it's different. He's not just broke, he has a girlfriend, Millie. He wants to give her a good life. So that pressure pushes him to say yes to a really dangerous plan, a highway ambush on a farmer to steal his company's payroll. And on paper, the plan looked flawless. I mean, they had every detail covered. Steal the car, watch the bank, follow the guy to a quiet road, fake a breakdown to block him. It seemed like a simple, clean job. But plans have a funny way of falling apart, don't they? The whole thing goes sideways, fast. The farmer they targeted wasn't some easy mark. He was armed, and he was ready to fight back. One of their crew, Kamande, is shot and killed right there on the road. Jack gets away, but that illusion of a glamorous life of crime, it's completely shattered. This isn't a game. This is real life, where one little mistake gets somebody killed. And after all the close calls, the money, and the violence, this brings us to where this kind of life almost always ends. The thrills don't last, but the price you pay, that's forever. Let's just break it down. Look at the balance sheet. The promise is quick cash, a fancy lifestyle, this feeling of freedom. But what's the real price? Years, decades, in prison. Your friends ending up dead or locked away with you, and a life where you're constantly looking over your shoulder. Because the bill always comes due. On January 6, 1971, the law finally caught up with John Kiriamiti. His life as a criminal was over, but that's where the incredible next chapter began, the one where he sits in a prison cell and writes this entire unbelievable story. And his story really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Fit in the end. And for the final word, we'll leave it to the author himself, writing from that prison cell. It's almost like a plea, telling us he's a changed man. It's just a haunting end to an incredible journey, from a rebellious schoolboy to a legendary author inside a maximum security prison. Have you ever read a love story that was actually written by a bank robber? Well, that's the wild premise behind the Kenyan classic, My Life with a Criminal. It's this incredible story of romance and, you guessed it, betrayal. But what really makes it stand out is that the criminal himself wrote it, but from the perspective of the woman he was lying to the whole time. And really, it all boils down to this one question. How well do you really know the person you love? This is the question that the main character, Millie, has to face head on. And honestly, it's a question that might make you think twice too. So you'd probably think a story with criminal in the title would kick off with a police chase or some big heist, right? Well, nope. It actually starts out as a pretty simple, sweet romance in 1970s Kenya. Okay, now here's the part that just blows my mind. The author, John Kiriamiti, he wasn't just some writer. He was a real-life, notorious bank robber, and he wrote this entire novel from prison. But instead of telling his side of the story, he decided to write it from the point of view of his girlfriend, Millie, the woman who had no clue who he really was. Their whole story begins with a classic meet cute. She knows him as Jack Zolo, this charming guy who finds her lost ID and returns it. It's this simple, kind gesture, and for Millie, that's it. That's the spark for what she believes is the beginning of a perfect romance. And this is where their lives just split into two totally different realities. In Millie's world, she's falling head over heels for this successful, charming car salesman. But in Jack's reality, he's one of Kenya's most wanted criminals, and she is completely in the dark. Of course, a lie that big, it can't last forever. That perfect picture starts to crack. Millie might be in love, but she's not dumb. And pretty soon she starts noticing things that just don't quite add up. You can kind of see her journey to the truth happening in these distinct stages. First, there's the initial lie he tells her. Then this creeping suspicion starts to set in as she notices all these weird inconsistencies. And finally, it all comes crashing down in that one awful moment of realization. I mean, can you even imagine that feeling? The person you share your life with, the one you love, is a total stranger? This quote just cuts right to the bone of her shock. It wasn't just that he was a criminal, it was the betrayal, the weight of being lied to for so long. So, okay, the secret's out. Millie knows the truth. What happens now? What do you even do with that kind of information? How do you keep living with someone whose whole life is built on a dangerous lie? Well, her first instinct is to confront him, but not with anger, really. It's more like a desperate plea for him to just be honest. She just wants him to drop the act and tell her the truth, probably hoping that there's still something real to save. But Jack doesn't come clean. Oh no. He doubles down, and he does something really cruel. He flips it all back on her. He gaslights her, trying to make her think she's crazy. He tells her she's just imagining things, that she's the one who's unstable. And pretty soon, her suspicions become this terrifying reality she can't escape. She's not just worrying about his secret life anymore. She's being dragged right into the middle of it. First, she actually sees him commit a crime. Then, she's there, present, during a bank heist. And if that's not crazy enough, he gets arrested, escapes from jail, and just shows up back at their home like nothing happened. This whole chaotic cycle of fear and lies, it just couldn't last. Millie finally reaches her breaking point, and it all leads to this one final, super dramatic confrontation that's going to change everything. And this is the moment. Millie tells him she's pregnant. Suddenly, it's not just about them anymore. There's a child on the way, and the stakes just got infinitely higher. They have to make a decision about their future, right now. So she gives him an ultimatum. She draws a line in the sand and makes it crystal clear. It's me and our baby, or it's your life of crime. You cannot have both. and he goes right back to it. So after breaking that promise, he gets caught one last time, and this time there's no escape. The law comes down hard. The sentence, 20 years in prison. So, what happens now? Jack's locked away for the next 2 decades. What happens to their love story? Can it even survive something like that? This is such a powerful and final moment in the book. After all the lies and all the fear and the heartbreak, it wasn't a fight that ended her love for him. It was the cold, hard reality of the courtroom. Just seeing him there in the dock while she was on the witness stand, that was it. The bond was broken. After that, their lives just go in completely different directions. For a while, she does visit him in prison with their son. But, life moves on. She meets someone new, she gets pregnant again, and the visits stop. Then, 6 years later, he's suddenly released and shows up right at her door. And there's no big dramatic fight, no explosive reunion. It's just this quiet, bittersweet moment of acceptance. He sees she has another child, that she has a whole new life, and they both just understand, without even needing to say it, that their story together is finally, truly over. And so that brings us right back to where we started, with that one big question. Millie's story. It offers one pretty powerful, heartbreaking answer, but it's a question that sticks with you long after you finish the book and makes you wonder, just how well can you ever really know the person you love?
Almost like the start of a noir film. But the setting is one we don't want to see.
Right, a really electric time. The country had just gained its independence.
Exactly. So the vibe is just everything feels possible, new businesses are popping up, the music scene is exploding, but you also have this gritty undercurrent, a bit of danger as society is kind of figuring itself out.
It is a classic noir setting, though, when you think about it. A time of really high hopes, but also high risks. You have this rapid urbanization, people flooding into the city for better life, and that gap between the haves and have-nots starts to get, well, very visible.
Totally. And right in the middle of all this energy, we have a young female student. She's standing at a bus stop and she drops her school ID card. Doesn't even notice, but a man does. This handsome, mysterious stranger. He picks it up.
Yeah, the meet cute.
Right. But in a rom-com, he'd tap her on the shoulder right then and there. This guy, though, he waits. He actually tracks her down to her school and waits outside the gates just to return it.
Which, depending on your perspective, is either this grand romantic gesture
Or
it's slightly obsessive stalker-ish behavior.
it walks that fine line. But in the story, sparks fly. It's the perfect setup. But here's the problem, and the reason we're doing this deep dive. That handsome stranger isn't just some guy. He is Jack Zolo.
A name that, if you know Kenyan history or literature, rings a very loud, very alarming, by John Kiriamiti.
This is such a fascinating stack of sources. It's the sequel to his huge hit, My Life in Crime, which is part of a trilogy that's now being adapted into a film. But the reason I wanted to cover this specific book is the twist in the perspective. It's honestly, it's kind of mind-bending.
It is really unique in the crime genre. So you have John Kiriamiti, a real-life convicted criminal, who wrote these books while he was serving time in prison. He used the alias Jack Zolo for himself, but for this book, he doesn't write from his own point of view. He writes from the perspective of his real-life girlfriend, Millie. Her actual name was Miriam Yambui.
Just pause on that for a second. The criminal is writing the story of his crimes through the eyes of the woman he was lying to the whole time.
Exactly. It's an act of, narrative ventriloquism.
Mm-hmm.
He's appropriating her voice to tell the story of how he victimized her. It raises so many questions about reliability right away. Is this really how she felt? Or is this just how he imagines she felt?
Or, and this is the darker possibility, is this how he wishes she felt? That is the lens we have to keep on this whole discussion. We're not just reading a crime thriller. We're reading a confession that's sort of masked as a romance. So our mission today is to break down this relationship between Millie and Jack Zollo. We're going to look at the psychology of the long con, the incredible stress of dating a wanted man in 70s Kenya, and how a lost ID card spirals into a 20-year prison sentence.
It's a heavy journey, but a necessary one to understand the human cost of that life.
Okay, so let's go back to the bus stop. The ID, that cinematic return. The source material paints this early courtship as very intense, but also very restrained.
Well, you have to look at the sociology of the time. This is post-independence Kenya. Traditional African values are colliding with modern urban life, but those traditions are still very strong.
Especially regarding gender roles.
Absolutely. Millie's a student. She's living under the strict authority of her parents.
So it's not like today where they just, match on an app and move in together a week later.
Oh, absolutely not. The sources really emphasized that they had to navigate these strict social rules. There was a huge cultural taboo against premarital sex. Her family had specific hopes for who she should marry. Someone with excess of cash you have to explain.
Right.
You have access to different vehicles all the time. Your hours are weird. You're gone for days. You're just around all the time in the middle of the week. If you say you're an accountant, you need to be at a desk at 8 a.m. But a car salesman in the 1970s, you're mobile, you're meeting clients, you're testing cars.
So the erratic behavior just looks like hustle.
Exactly. It turns all the red flags into signs of success. It let him project this image of a stable provider, someone worthy of a nice girl like Millie, while completely hiding the chaos. And she was young, likely impressionable, and looking for that specific kind of stability. She fell for the mask because it was designed specifically to appeal to her.
But masks have to slip. You can't keep up that kind of performance 24/7, especially when you start a life together. They do eventually move in together, which was already defying some of those parental expectations. And this is where the genre shifts. It goes from romance to psychological thriller.
It's that inevitable collision of fantasy and reality.
So Millie starts noticing little inconsistencies. The money doesn't really match the commission checks. He's gone at weird times or comes home looking rattled.
The math just isn't adding up.
Right. And this is the part of the book that really frustrated me for her. She confronts him, she does the healthy thing and says, hey, what is going on?
And this is where we see the real darkness in Jack Zollo. He doesn't confess. He doesn't even just deny it.
He flips it. He calls her crazy.
Yes. He accuses her of being mentally ill. He claims her suspicions are just a symptom of her own instability.
It's textbook gaslighting. I know we throw that word around a lot these days, but this is the literal definition.
It is. And you have to remember, in 1960s Kenya, the term gaslighting wasn't common. The power dynamic between men and women was already so toward the man. If the man of the house says you're hysterical, you're imagining things, that carries a lot of weight. He's using her love and her fear for him as a weapon against her own mind.
It's so toxic. She's worried he's in danger because she loves him, and he tells her that worry is proof that she's sick. The book says Millie actually tries to suppress her own intuition. She tries to force herself to stop worrying just to keep the peace.
It's a survival mechanism. It's what we call cognitive dissonance. She has two conflicting realities in her head. I love this man and we have a life together, and this man is acting like a criminal. To resolve the stress, she just chooses to suppress the evidence. She makes a bargain with herself. If I just stop asking, maybe everything will be okay.
But she can't not ask forever because the crime doesn't stay in the shadows. And there is this one scene in the book that is just, it's bonkers. It moves from suspicion to, oh my God, I am watching a felony in progress.
The bank incident. This is the crucial turning point.
Yes. Can you just walk us through this? Because this feels like the moment in the movie trailer where the bass drops.
So Millie is at a bank, just doing normal everyday stuff, running an errand, maybe withdrawing household money, and suddenly a robbery starts. There's chaos, shouting, weapons, and who walks in with the gun? It's Jack, her boyfriend.
Can you imagine that moment? You're terrified of the robbers, you look up hoping for help, and it's the guy you share a bed with holding the shotgun.
It just completely shatters that compartmentalization.
Him to be groveling, you'd expect, I'm so sorry, I'm glad you're safe, let me explain. But no. What does Jack do? He gets mad at her.
It's that defensive anger again. It's shame masked as rage.
Explain that to me. Why get mad at the victim? It makes no sense.
Because her presence is a mirror. If she's there looking terrified, he has to see himself through her eyes. He has to see himself as the villain terrorizing the woman he claims to love. He can't handle that image of himself. He probably thinks of himself as, a Robin Hood figure or just a tough guy. So to protect his ego, he attacks her. He blames her for being there. He makes it her fault so he doesn't have to feel the guilt.
That is just so messed up. But it sets the dynamic for the rest of their time together. He lies and steals, she worries and suffers, and then he gets mad at her for worrying. It's this horrible cycle. But eventually the law catches up. It has to.
No, the house always wins eventually. This nature of the justice system at that time. Or maybe just Jack's specific skills. But put yourself in Millie's shoes. Put yourself in Millie's shoes. It's terrifyingly confusing. The state can't hold him. He's supposed to be in jail, and now he's on her couch. It creates this sense that he's inevitable, that she can't escape him because even the police can't hold him.
But this leads to the breaking point. The stakes get raised because Millie finds out she's pregnant.
And biology changes the entire equation. It forces a long-term perspective.
Exactly. She's looking at this man who's a rude criminal escapee, and she realizes, I cannot raise a child in this chaos. And she finally finds her voice. She gives him an ultimatum. She pleads with him to leave the criminal life. She demands they get married and live normally, or she's done.
And this is such a pivotal moment for her agency. She's not the passive student accepting the lie anymore. She's a mother-to-be protecting her future child. She's drawing a line in the sand.
She's saying, choose the adrenaline or us.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack, what does he choose?
He chooses the life. He refuses to marry her, and he refuses to stop robbing banks.
That is such a harsh rejection. It's not just, I can't change, it's, I won't.
It shows that his commitment to the lifestyle, or maybe his addiction to the adrenaline and the easy money, was just stronger than his commitment to her and their unborn child. We often glamorize these figures, but in this moment, you just see the profound selfishness. He chose the
leaves a pregnant Millie to figure out life on her own in a society that, let's be honest, was not super kind to single mothers.
No, it would have been incredibly difficult for her. The stigma alone would have been immense.
It seems like it's over. He's gone, but it's not. Of course, the bad penny turns up again. He comes back.
The cycle of abuse often involves these returns. It's that hoovering technique, sucking the person back in with promises.
Exactly that. He returns with this new vow. He says, okay, I'm done. I learned my lesson. I will stop being a criminal. Let's get married. Let's have that quiet life.
And Millie, who likely wants to believe in the father of her child, wanting that dream she had at the bus stop to finally come true, she listens. It's the triumph of hope over experience.
But the promise is just worthless. Almost immediately, he's back involved in bank robberies. It's compulsive. But this time, his luck runs out. The police capture him again. And this isn't a 2-week sentence anymore.
No, the gravity of his actions finally lands.
He gets sentenced to 20 years in prison.
20 years. That's a lifetime. That is watching your child grow from an infant into an adult, entirely from behind bars.
And the book describes the trial scene from Millie's perspective. She's there as a witness. And it says, this is the definitive moment. Not when he lied, not when he robbed the bank in front of her, not even when he refused to marry her. It was at the trial. That's where her love for him finally died. Why then? Why at the very end?
I think it's the finality of it. Before, there was always movement. Escapes, returns, arguments, drama. A 20-year sentence is static. It's a reality check that no amount of charm or manipulation can talk its way out of. Seeing him in that context, stripped of his power, handcuffed, facing decades in a cell, maybe she finally saw him clearly. The Jack Zolo myth just evaporated, and she just saw a man who threw his entire life away. The illusion couldn't survive that courtroom.
So the love is dead, but the ties aren't completely cut. Not yet. Millie has a broken heart, but she still visits him in prison for a while. She even brings their son to see him.
It really speaks to her character. Despite everything, she tried to maintain that connection for the sake of the child. She was trying to do the right thing, even when he had done everything wrong.
But life has to go on. You can't just pause your life for 20 years waiting for a ghost. Millie eventually meets another man. She starts a new relationship, and she becomes pregnant again. And this is where she makes a tough call. She stops visiting Jack, cuts him off completely to keep him from finding out about the new pregnancy.
It's a protective measure. She's building a new life, a stable life, the one Jack promised but never delivered. And she knows him. She knows his jealousy, his possessiveness. Bringing that energy back into her new life could destroy it. So she ghosts him.
She chooses the future over the past.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the epilogue. Fast forward 6 years. 6 years of silence. Jack gets out or escapes again. The source isn't totally clear on the how, but knowing him,
Probably an escape.
he just shows up at her house.
Imagine the tension in that room.
He hasn't seen her in 6 years.
Oh,
He walks in expecting what? To just pick up where they left off. But he discovers the truth. She's with someone else. She has another child. The life he promised her, she built it with another man.
And what's Jack's reaction? You might expect violence, given his history.
Right. That's the surprising part. There's no shootout,
Yes.
no screaming match. The source describes it as this: somber acceptance. They both just accept it, that their lives have to continue separately.
It's a quiet, melancholic ending. It just underscores the waste of it all.
Yeah.
All that potential, all that passion, wasted. It's almost more powerful than a big fight. It's just resignation. He realizes he's lost the right to be angry.
It's just tragic. So let's zoom out. We started with a lost ID card at a bus stop, the symbol of innocence and chance, and we ended with a broken family, a 20-year sentence, and two people just looking at each other across a divide they can't cross.
It's such a stark reminder of the collateral damage of crime. We often consume true crime focusing on the heist, the mastermind, the Jack Zolo figure. We look at the adrenaline. But this story forces us to look at the person waiting at home, the person being lied to, the person who has to raise the child alone while the so-called hero is in prison.
And we have to circle back to the author. John Kiriamiti wrote this. He is Jack Zolo. He wrote this book in 1989, looking back at his own life. He is confessing to how his criminality destroyed his domestic world.
That's the why it matters here. It's this act of self-reflection. But we have to ask, is it reliable? By writing as Millie, Kiriamiti is forcing himself to inhabit the pain he caused. He's saying, I know what I did to you, and I'm going to tell the world from your point of view.
It's fascinating, but it's also, I don't know, kind of arrogant. Like, he's taking her voice.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We have to look at it critically. Is it a genuine apology? Or is it the ultimate act of control? Even after the relationship ended, after she moved on with her life, he is still the one writing her words. He's still the one defining her narrative for the public. He is the author of her pain, both in life and on the page.
That's a thought that is going to stick with me. Does he have the right to tell her story, even if it makes him look bad? It blurs the line between penance and possession in a really uncomfortable way.
It does. It's a complex legacy for complex relationship.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that stories, like memories, are so often shaped by the person holding the pen.
Well, that is all the time we have for this deep dive into my life with a criminal. It's a story of love, lies, and the hard road to reality in 1970s Kenya.
A powerful reminder that sometimes the most dangerous mask is the one worn by the person you love.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.